Squirting for the first time isn't easy, and there's 9 common reasons that hold women back from squirting if they've never squirted before, or maybe they've squirted on the rare occasion but they find they're not able to do it regularly. Understanding how to overcome these can help you to successfully make your partner squirt, or can help you squirt yourself if you're the one that's trying to squirt. The first reason is issues with the pelvic floor. Now, this can be a lack of pelvic floor strength, or it can be an over-tightening of the pelvic floor muscles. See, when a woman squirts, what actually needs to happen is for her to relax and push on her pelvic floor muscles. So if she has weak pelvic floor muscles, this could be difficult to do, but for a lot of women, it's actually the tightening of the pelvic floor muscles that stops her from squirting. When they're about to squirt, it can often feel like they're about to wee, so a lot of women will clamp down on those pelvic floor muscles because they're afraid that they're going to wee and wet the bed. But really what they need to do is to actually relax and bear down on those muscles in order for the squirt to come out. And this can lead to an incredible ejaculatory orgasm. For many women, this issue can be resolved simply by relaxing their pelvic floor at the time of squirting. And it can be really helpful to encourage your partner when you feel that they're getting close, let them know to relax, let it out, that it's very sexy and that you want them to squirt. If pelvic floor strength is the issue, then simply doing Kegel exercises and reverse Kegel exercises can help to strengthen those pelvic floor muscles. The second thing that stops women from squirting is a lack of arousal. If she's not highly aroused, or what I like to call peak arousal, then the chance of her squirting is a lot lower. This is the issue that I had with one of my partners. We were trying to make her squirt and we were able to successfully do it one time. And then we went back to try and do it again and we weren't able to successfully make her squirt. The difference was that when she was able to do it, she was at that highly aroused state. We had had a lot of foreplay, we'd spent a lot of time in bed together, we'd even had sex, and then I used the techniques on her right when she was near climax. However, in the other situations, I went in too early with the techniques, and so she didn't have the time to get fully aroused. There wasn't enough time to build up blood flow in the area, and so the squirt just couldn't happen. Yes, sometimes women can squirt rather quickly, but this depends on the woman, and if you want the best chance of squirting, wait until she's fully aroused. The third thing is probably what's actually holding most women back from successfully squirting, and that's poor technique. It's a very specific technique to get a woman to squirt that's very different to other sorts of stimulation. It can be very fast and very intense and almost rough, to the point that if you were to do this technique when she wasn't aroused, you could actually hurt her. But something to do with her being fully aroused and turned on and the blood flow in the area, you can do this technique vigorously and then she's able to squirt. However, if you're not using the correct technique, it's very, very difficult to ever make your partner squirt unless it just happens by accident or if they already know how to do it. If you want to learn the exact techniques that I've used to make around 80 to 90% of the women that I've tried to make squirt actually squirt, then I've got a brand new course where I reveal the secret techniques to getting her to squirt. Inside that course, I share not only the fingering techniques and exactly what you need to do, but I also talk about body positioning, I talk about timing and mindset, and all of the different factors that go into successfully being able to make your partner squirt. So if this is something that you really want to do, check out the course by going to passionately.com/squirt, or check the link in the description down below. Now, the fourth thing holding women back from successfully squirting is timing. We talked about how they need to be at that peak arousal state in order for them to squirt, but you also need enough lead up time for the area to actually fill up with liquid in order for her to be able to squirt. So a big mistake that a lot of people make is they go in too early to try and make her squirt, where really you should just focus on having an amazing session together, be connected, do foreplay, do oral sex, do fingering, even do intercourse, and take a good amount of time together, build her up over time, get her to that peak arousal state, and then try and make her squirt, not before. The fifth thing I see hold a lot of women back, and that is mindset and belief around squirting. Some women feel a lot of shame or potentially disgust around squirting. They're scared that squirt is actually wee, and if you're worried about that, then go ahead and check out the video that I did on that topic. But this causes them to have a negative association with squirting in their mind, which means when it comes time for them to squirt, they're more likely to clench those pelvic floor muscles and to stop themselves from squirting. Some women may also believe that squirting's not possible. I remember hooking up with a woman who was saying that she had talked to her friends, none of her friends had been able to squirt and neither had she, and they just decided that that must mean squirting is fake and what you see in porn is fake. And yes, some of the squirting in porn is fake. However, all women can squirt, and I'm happy to say that in our session together, she was successfully able to squirt, and so I'm sure she had a story to take back to her friends. But if women don't believe they can squirt, or they think it's shameful or disgusting, then you need to have the conversation with them about how great squirting can be, about how it can feel really good for them, about how it can turn you on and how sexy it is for you. One of the things that I love to say to women is, I find it so hot when you squirt. Squirting is so sexy to me and it turns me on so much. So that lets them know that when we reach that situation, if they're likely to squirt, I'm going to have a very positive reaction to that, and they don't need to be scared that I might be disgusted or have a negative reaction. Along this topic of mindset, there could also be trauma in her past that is holding her back from feeling pleasure in that area, holding her back from relaxing, or holding her back from being able to squirt. So if you do believe that there's trauma, then obviously talk about it, and she may need to seek out some professional help in order to overcome that. The sixth thing that can hold women back is a lack of G-spot sensitivity. So when you are doing the squirting technique, you are vigorously stimulating the G-spot, which is the urethral sponge. However, most women don't actually orgasm through the G-spot or through penetration, but they actually orgasm through the clitoris, which is the most sensitive spot in their body, and it's also the easiest spot for them to touch and to pleasure themselves. It's much less common for women to finger themselves and stimulate the G-spot, and it's actually quite difficult to reach their hands around and get their fingers up to that. So it can be normal that they lack G-spot sensitivity and they're unable to orgasm from their G-spot. The solution here is to try to increase the G-spot sensitivity by decreasing the focus on the clitoris for a time and stimulating their G-spot with your fingers, or they might want to do it with toys when they're by themselves. You can go ahead and check out this video on the different G-spot stroking techniques if you want some ideas about how you can pleasure that area. There's lots of different things that you can do to give them some amazing pleasure, but just know that this may take time. If you feel that she's really struggling to squirt because of this lack of G-spot sensitivity, then don't just try and make her squirt first time. Instead, take your time with the G-spot over multiple sessions and get her to the point where she's able to have G-spot orgasms. While the act of squirting can be great, squirting can happen without an orgasm. So I would argue that actually the G-spot orgasm and being able to give your partner that is probably more important and more beneficial than trying to get them how to squirt. It just so happens that if you're able to do that, it makes squirting so much more likely. The seventh thing that stops women from squirting is feeling like they need to wee. When you're in the moment and when you're vigorously stimulating them and trying to get them to squirt, it's very common that they feel like they need to wee. And for obvious reasons, this can cause a lot of women to stress out and to clench those pelvic floors because they don't want to accidentally wee. Now, this feeling is completely normal, and if you communicate this to them beforehand that, hey, it might feel like you need to wee, and when that happens, just go ahead and relax, this can definitely help them. It can also be helpful for them to go to the toilet right before you start your foreplay, so that way they know their bladder is empty and they're not as worried about this. Also, when you're in the moment and you feel like they're getting close, they might get stuck up in their head worrying about things, and this is a great opportunity for you to talk to them. Tell them how sexy they are. Tell them how sexy it would be if they squirted. Talk dirty to them and encourage them to get them to relax so they can let it out. The eighth thing is something that's really important, and that's body positioning. There's a few different body positions where squirting is easier. Obviously, you've got the main position where the female is lying on her back, but there's some variations on this position that can make it easier for her to squirt. For example, if you put a pillow underneath her bum, that can help to raise up her pelvis, which can allow you to get deeper with your fingers and can make squirting a little bit easier for some women. In my course on squirting, I go into full detail of the different body positions for squirting and some of the best body positions that I've had the most success with first-time squirters. So if they've never squirted in their life, then there's one position that I find and really helps them to squirt for the first time can feel really good, and they can also enjoy it and see it happening. So if you want to learn more about the best body positions for squirting and the exact techniques that I use to help my partners squirt, go to passionately.com/squirt or click the link in the description down below and sign up for the course today. And the last reason that some women can't squirt is just a lack of practice. Squirting does take practice and it does take time, both for the giver and the receiver. For the giver, it takes time to really hone in your techniques and your skill and to understand your partner and what they like to help them to squirt. And the same is true for the receiver as well. If you've never squirted before, it can be a very unique feeling, and you do have to use your pelvic floor muscles in order to make the squirt happen. So if you've never squirted before, it can take time and practice to be able to successfully let go and to be able to squirt and to know what that feels like in your body as well. So practice with your partner and try it with them over multiple sessions, and with time and with dedicated effort, I'm confident that you'll be able to get there. If after all this you're still struggling to make your partner squirt, then check out this video on one of the most important tips to successfully make her squirt. Understanding this tip is really important and a complete game changer to help bring her to those squirting orgasms.